All right, everybody. So this is the virtual version of our Westbank RIA. Of course, we're going through right now a transition of Hurricane Ida, but we still want to remain resourceful. This is not our first time going through this. Some of the experienced investors that already went through Katrina, we kind of know what to do. Some of the newer investors, if this is your first time going through a storm, we're here to help. So today we have Anitra Preston. She is in the insurance business and she is also an investor. So we want to kind of take this time instead of having an in-person meeting, we're going to do this virtual call. And later on, if you guys want to leave questions in the comments or reach out to her, she'll leave her contact information at the end of the call. Without further ado, how you doing, Anitra?
Hey, Emile, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Really good, really good. So tell us a little bit about what it is that you do, the name of your company, and what is insurance adjusting?
So the name of my company is Louisiana Claims Consulting. Mm-hmm. Right now, what I do and what I've been doing since 2016 is what you call an insurance appraiser. Similar to a real estate appraiser, but a little bit different. So basically, when you have a dispute with your insurance company, you don't agree with the estimate, your contractor submitted an estimate that's much higher in most cases than your insurance company, you have the option to pull what they call an appraiser, your appraisal trigger, which is a part of the policy. So you'd call someone like myself and I'll review your policy, I'll review your claim, and I'll assign it a value. I'll even create my own estimate and assign it my value. And then I negotiate that with your insurance company. So it's not that many of us in the state. It's probably about 60 of us that do this kind of work throughout the whole entire state of Louisiana. So it's pretty interesting. But I started adjusting in 2013. So I have experience with adjusting from determining auto liability all the way up to your property damage.
Right.
Daily claims, water losses, fire losses, and of course, weather-related events such as Hurricane Ida.
And what is assurance adjusting? Help us out.
So essentially, there's two types. There's a few different types. So an insurance adjuster would work with the carrier. So basically, you have a claim, you file a claim. The insurance adjuster comes out to assess your damage. He or she will write an estimate on what they think. And I say think because a lot of them don't have construction knowledge as to what they think the repair value is going to be on your damages, right? And then there's an inside adjuster, what we call a desk adjuster, or what they call examiners, where they sit inside, they review everything, they review photos, they're double checking behind the outside adjuster who came out, whom you've met with face to face. They're double checking everything, making sure everything fits inside the policy languages. They're the ones that are issuing checks to you as the progression of your claim goes through its cycle. We may issue letters, denial letters. We're communicating with you. We're communicating with your contractor as well.
Got it. So what's the dynamic of the entire relationship? Because most people, we know the insurance agents, we know the insurance brokers. So we just purchased an investment property or another investment property. Prior to closing, we got a policy with the insurance broker, and now a hurricane hits. So how does the adjuster and the broker and the consumer all work together to get the claims played out? What is that relationship?
That's a really good question. Your insurance agent, AKA or your insurance broker, typically does not get involved with the claims process. That's not, we're not playing in the same ballpark. Your insurance agent is strictly there to sell you a policy, give you some insight on what that policy covers, what it doesn't cover. But after that, everything is now in the claims department. You know, when a Hurricane Ida hits, now the claims department. So it's like two companies, but there is a slight separation there. However, the ideology is we all want to see, you know, the policyholder.
All right, a few technical difficulties. We're still dealing with Hurricane Ida Wi-Fi issues, but the question was, how does the dynamic in a relationship work between the consumer, the insurance agent or broker, and the claims adjuster whenever something like Hurricane Ida hits?
Yeah, so like I was saying, your agent typically does not get involved in the claims process at all. The agent doesn't really give a lot of advice on the claims because they just don't, you know, a lot of them just don't know. But if they've been in a business for, I mean, decades, years, they may know a little bit about how the claim process works. They can guide you on how to file a claim. But as far as handling the claim themselves, that's actually absolute no-no, that the agent does not get involved. So your agent is more of is just a relationship builder with you in selling you policies and things of that nature. And in the claims department, we're just strictly here to take care of you, or, you know, when you experience a loss. So ideally, the objective between the agent and the claims department is to see all policyholders, you know, get back whole is what we call it. We want to try to make you whole, to get back to what you were prior to your loss.
Right. And what's some of the let's start with the most common items that property owners, especially investors that have multiple properties, would they normally overlooked, or what some of the mistakes that you've seen that are most common investors make?
So the most common overlook, and I would say this is not just for investors, this is also for homeowners. I posted this a couple of days ago. Any contractor can put your house together or put your property back together. But a contractor that deals with insurance companies have the ability to find what I call additional coverage or additional line items. The biggest piece is what I would like to call is, or what we call is mitigation. A lot of just your average everyday contractor doesn't know that there's certain items that can be paid for underneath your claim. So if the adjuster comes out and he misses that mitigation piece and your contractor just simply writes his estimate, then you potentially might be losing out on another $3, $5, sometimes even $10,000 on your claim just for mitigation. And what I mean by that is, you know, you may have roof damage, and because you have roof damage, we have what we call a storm created opening, right? So now the rain is seeking inside the property. Well, the first option that a normal contractor will be like, oh, we got to rip all this stuff out, right? So that's demo, but we're missing the mitigation piece. What about drying it out? What about getting some dehumidifiers in there, you know, some air movers in there, some antimicrobial to fight back against, you know, anything such as mold that might be building up. You know, we see mold, we want to just get rid of it. And we skip that mitigation process, right? And if you have a contractor that's familiar with that, he's going to add mitigation plus the demo, plus the build back. So to me, it's the mitigation piece that a lot of contractors miss out on, a lot of homeowners miss out on, and a lot of, you know, investors miss out on as well.
Yeah. So whose responsibility is it to bring that up? Is it the consumer, the contractor, the adjuster's responsibility?
You know, it's always the onus is on you as the policyholder to prove your loss, right? If you have a really good adjuster, that adjuster is going to include it. If you don't, and you just don't know, it's kind of like the cost of ignorance, right? You didn't know, it wasn't added. The desk adjuster is not going to say, hey, Emile, you know what? We owe you another 10,000 on your estimate. If your contractor is writing up that he can do the job, then we're going to trust that he knows what he's doing, which is his estimate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So who gains or loses for those oversights, right? So if there is that potential of 10,000 that could have been accounted for, is that a plus for the adjuster and a loss for the insurance company, or is it a plus for the insurance company and just a loss for the consumer? I guess where I'm going.
It's just a loss to the consumer.
Okay.
At the end of the day, it's just your loss. And I hate to use the word loss because, again, your contractor said that he can get the job done. Mm-hmm. You get what I'm saying? By just ripping everything out, you're actually getting what you need back. But again, you know, maybe there was some lost opportunity with saying, hey, let's do a mitigation first. Let's do some water extraction first. Let's see if we can dry this stuff out. In addition to demoing.
Got it. What's the best way would you describe these claims? So is it adding as many line items as possible and then see what comes back, or would you describe it to be as precise and as accurate as possible?
So I believe you should claim everything that's damaged, right? You should be able to add, in this case, like you're stating, add as many line items that are applicable, right, to your loss. And then you submit that to the claims department. But again, we have to have justification as to why we're doing certain line items. Another thing that we miss sometimes is charging the insurance company for scaffolding, right? Say, for instance, you had siding come 40 feet up in the air. I'm actually dealing with a claim right now where the insurance company, okay, we've accepted the damages for the siding, right? They're going to replace the siding. They've agreed to replace the siding, but they didn't add scaffolding. How is the contractor supposed to get 40 feet up in the air and place siding without the scaffolding?
Who didn't add scaffolding in this example?
The insurance company didn't add scaffolding.
Okay.
So I caught it.
Mm.
So
as the adjuster.
Yeah. So I'm acting as the appraiser on this particular file. So I'm working for the policyholder.
Okay.
So I caught it. Okay. So now you've agreed to replace the siding on this house. How are we going to get up 40 feet in the air? We need scaffolding, right? You've agreed to replace the roof, but we didn't charge for the 2 stories. It's a 2-story house, or it's a steep house. So these are just individual line items that a skilled contractor who deals with insurance companies would know. It's not something that a policyholder would know. You wouldn't know that, hey, I can charge extra because now my guys are going up 2 stories, plus it's a steep roof.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
I do. I guess, so who makes the call whether there's a difference between a ladder and a scaffold? So whose expertise do we have to lean on for that?
So that would be would be your contractor, right? Okay. So if we're going 40 feet up, he should be using a scaffold, period. He shouldn't be even using a ladder.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's his common practice, that's fine, but he doesn't, but if your contractor is accustomed to using a ladder, but doesn't know that he can build the insurance company for a scaffolding, then, you know, that might be a little bit on your contractor.
Yeah. So one more question. So for the property owners that view these damages or these hurricanes as an opportunity to do value add to the properties, right? So if I feel like my deductible is only $2,000, the hurricane came, I feel like this is my opportunity to get a new roof. What's normally your advice to those owners, not just investors, but those owners that try to leverage situations like these to get major repairs done?
So my advice is going to be the same that I give to all policyholders, no matter what it is you're trying to accomplish. You need to determine if your damages are going to exceed the deductible. And the only way to do that prior to filing a claim is getting your contractor over there to estimate those damages. How much it's going to cost to repair this roof. And again, it's little stuff like what I just said. If it's a 2-story, all right, how many squares need to be replaced? So you need to get a really good estimate to determine if it's even worth you even filing a claim, right? Because at the end of the day, when the adjuster does his assessment, that $2,000 is going to be deducted from your overall estimate, because that's your obligation to cover that with the contractor.
Got it. So who's the judge on wants and needs, right? I want a new roof, but who comes in and says you don't need a new roof? Is that the contractor or the adjuster or the consumer?
That's on the damage. I mean, that's on how much damage you got. My case in point, I have 65 squares on my roof, but I only have 4 shingles missing. That doesn't constitute a roof replacement. It constitutes a roof repair, but not a roof replacement. There's no way that I'm going to, and this is real life. I have 4 shingles missing right now. I have maybe some fascia missing. My gutters are hanging. You know, my husband's a contractor, and I'm looking at this and I'm like, my deductible is $3,850 to be exact. I'm not filing a claim for Hurricane Ida. For 4 shingles and a fascia and some gutters that I'm gonna pop right back up, it's not worth it. I can't justify a roof replacement with 4 shingles missing, right? If you got, every carrier has different rules, right? So if you got more than 50% of your roof that's damaged, then that might constitute a replacement versus a repair. The policy is always going to seek to repair first before it seeks to replace.
And what can we research the mitigation opportunities? So for the people, you gave an excellent example on either the scaffolding or the drying piece. Let's say when you're dealing with hurricanes like this, but it's exterior, where could I go to research what mitigating opportunities or line items are available for the exterior of the house, right? So
that's all in just knowing at the end of the day. There's some other resources you can use as far as determining how things need to be repaired. So there's this, you have, some people have what they call optional L or ordinance of law, right? In that instance, you can use the safety and permit office, right? You can go up and look up code. What is the code for repairing certain items in my area? There's this international code. I think it's called CRC or IRC. So you can look at what the international code is stating as to what the repair process should look like for a roof. But the best resource is code enforcement. What does Orleans Parish require for roof replacement? And those are some arguments that you can add to your estimate, or your contractor can add to his estimate as to why he is requiring a replacement versus a repair.
Yeah, so that's
if you live in a gated community, that may be an argument. A few years ago, I needed to replace my roof. They wanted to do a repair, and so at this particular point, matching is always a tricky way, but because the policy typically says they don't owe for matching, right? So they don't owe for matching shingles. We know that your shingles are worn at this particular point, so to go get a brand new bundle, you know, it's not gonna match, right? So there's these all kinds of, I can go on and on about this. There's these line of sight rules that each county or parish may have, right? Your gated community may have a line of sight ordinance, and if you have what they call option OL on your policy, then you very well can probably get a roof replaced just based on knowing the laws and the language of line of sight. You can say, okay, for me to repair my roof, or AKA put a patch on it, I have a line of sight ordinance in my parish. I can't do that. I have a line of sight ordinance in my gated community. I can't do that. I got to get a full roof replacement, just for the sake of it looking better, with all the shingles being of the same age and same color.
And who do we provide that evidence to? So if the HOA has bylaws that specifically state that line of sight, what you're describing, that's packaged up and presented to.
You would present that to your inside adjuster at that particular point. Once you get an estimate. So say, for instance, your adjuster is saying, hey, listen, this roof needs to be repaired and not replaced, but your contractor feels like it needs to be replaced, then those are just some items that you can add once you determine if there is a line of sight ordinance. Typically that's going to come from the parish though.
Yeah. So to identify other opportunities of mitigation, just a simple Google search of code enforcement, my county, my parish, code enforcement, Jefferson Parish.
Right. Right. But
at
the end of the day, it's like, again, it's just all based off experience, man. It really is. It's just based on experience, seeing tons of claims. I've adjusted claims from Oregon to New York to Florida to, just all over the country. And it's just a practice, just learning what it is and things of that nature. Each company has what we call state specifics. And so just learning that information, learning what goes on in Lake Charles doesn't go on in New Orleans, right? And learning what those codes say, that's a good thing for your contractor, whoever's estimating damages for an insurance company. That I would have to go back and say, learning the code, what code enforcement requires, will help out a lot.
Yeah, what's your advice to the investor or the first time property owner that thinks that they need to know their policy, line by line, sentence by sentence, in order to know what their rights are?
Man, that's a really good question. I do think it's important that you know your policy. Line by line, not necessarily line by line, but there's sections of that policy that are applicable to you now. And in those sections, that's the section you need to know. When it comes to the big question about loss of use, or AKA loss of rents, that may be something that's important to investors right now. You need to look at that section to determine if in fact you do qualify for loss of rents. And understand that. That's the section you should read line by line, and understanding what it means and how do they determine loss of rents.
Yeah, what does negotiation fit in this relationship? So, I make my claim, the outside adjuster comes in, bring the numbers back to the inside adjuster. Where does negotiation fit in this whole transaction?
The whole process is a negotiation from the very beginning. Again, as I stated before, adjusters are not contractors. They're simply licensed individuals who go out, write an estimate. We use a common software to write our estimate. It's called Xactimate software. The industry relies wholly on that, but that can be completely off, right? We could be off on labor. We can be off on the cost of material. So again, your greatest strength as a policyholder is your contractor. How good is your contractor? What estimating the damages? and knowing his prices, because that comes into question all the time. Okay, so I may have, I may do $252 per square to replace a roof, and your contractor may say it's $300 per square, right? So the insurance company is like, okay, where did this additional 40 some odd dollars come from? Well, he has to know his cost. Oh, because the cost of materials have gone up. I know that was the case. I think OSB at one point used to be like $12, and I think it shot up to like $50 a sheet. You know, so he has to know that. He has to know that those the additional 40 some odd dollars is due to materials. Two, he has to know that the reason why maybe the labor has gone up, which is absolutely going to be true. People, contractors and laborers were stretched thin last year. There's still plenty of work in Lake Charles. So for him to get quality guys to stay on top of the job, he may have to pay his guys more, but he has to be prepared to explain that to the insurance company, because the Xactimate software doesn't explain it to the adjuster. He or she doesn't know. That information is probably 90 days behind or so. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the contractors, the ones who are actually on the ground performing the work, they're the most knowledgeable to be able to explain, hey, it's going to cost me $300 per square to replace this roof.
Yeah. So what should be our perception of adjusters? Like, are they the adversary, or are they the partner?
So I'm pro policyholder, right? I spent a lot of years, a lot of claims working for your big companies like State Farm, right? I would say you should always approach your adjuster nicely. just always, it's kind of like one of those things. It's like, we're not gonna battle the insurance adjuster at the house. We're gonna battle what we believe to be a fair estimate through paper. Right? So, just know that the insurance adjuster is working for his carrier. He's working for that company, and your contractor is working for you.
Right. I think that's fair. So how are the adjusters incentivized, right? So I think incentives affect behavior. So if we know how to incentivize, maybe that could help us out. Maybe that can help us to help them.
So yeah, there are some incentives for some adjusters. It just kind of depends on who they're working for. What I mean by that is like what contract firm they're working for. A lot of these adjusters you're going to meet are what we call IAs, independent adjusters. They don't work directly for State Farm. They don't work directly for Allstate. They're just contract. They come in. They're gonna be here for a couple of months, and then as everything gets slowed down, then they're gonna go back home to wherever they came from, whether that's Texas, Florida, New York, whatever. They're going back home. In some cases, such as like a flood adjuster, the more damages he writes, the higher his paycheck, right? But that also could be a double-edged sword. He just can't make up stuff either, because as an adjuster completes an estimate, it goes in, he has to turn it back into his firm or his company for review. And again, those line items have to match the damages. They have to match the photos. It has to make sense to the policy. So again, some of us are going to be lucky to get experienced adjusters who can interpret and understand a policy, which in this case is what I call looking for coverage. And a lot of you guys in reality are just going to get a brand new adjuster. We were already short last year going into Hurricane Delta and Laura. We were really stretched thin. It's not that many people in this community, and that's nationwide. So if you get an inexperienced adjuster, it's going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah. Is there, can you change adjusters if you're dissatisfied?
You can. You have the option to do what they call an escalation. You also have the option to do to request a second inspection. You have the option to say, I want a second inspection, but I don't want the same adjuster, because sometimes they'll send the same adjuster out, but you have to be specific. I want a second inspection and I don't want the same adjuster that came out before.
Specific to who? Who I'm on the phone with saying that, you know,
typically you're going to be talking to the desk adjuster, the inside person, the person who answers the phone all the time.
Okay.
So you're going to request that through them.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So quick exercise. Let's just use this as an example. What does Anitra do? Hurricane Emile comes, rip the roof off. What's step one once you come back home from an evacuation?
So my first step, if my roof is damaged, one, I probably already filed my claim wherever I was at. So I've already started the claim process. When I come back and I assess my damage, now at this particular point, it's just preservation of property, right? I want to secure my property. Under the policy, you have a duty to secure your property and to prevent additional damages. So however that may look like, that's what I'm going to be doing at this particular point to try to prevent additional damages.
What do you mean you started the claim process already? So you evacuated to Florida. How did you start the claim process without even seeing your damage? What is that?
Hey, just looking at the news, just like how you know, you're looking at news, people probably stayed here, you're getting phone calls about your area, about your street. I'm going to file the claim whether I know the damages are significant or not. You know, based off the reports, based off what I see, you know, based off my area. You know, if I'm living in Laplace and I'm seeing people flooded and my address is two, three houses down, or maybe the house around the corner, then I'm probably gonna file my claim based off of that.
So there is no penalty for being wrong. I know some people.
There is no penalty to being wrong. So so what it do is when you make initial contact, some carriers, specifically State Farm, they have what they call they'll just assign you a claim number, right? So at this particular point, it's not a full-blown claim. They'll assign you a claim number. You still have the opportunity now to determine, once you make your assessment, if you want to proceed forward or not, right? It's what we call CWP, close without pay. So if you come home and you actually got that claim number, you filed the claim, but then you come home and you be like, oh, well, yeah, it's not going to exceed my deductible. I think I can take care of this. You just call them back and say, hey, listen, close the claim. I'm good. And they'll just say, okay, great, close the claim and we move on.
Well, what is the advantage of calling early as possible? What advantage do you gain?
So the advantage of calling early as possible is, like I stated, is we don't have a lot of people, right? And so you want to be one of the first ones on the roster for when the adjusters come into town. You want to be one of the first ones to get the adjuster to come to your house whenever possible to start your claim process. So therefore you can, you know, move through the claim processing and get on with your life and start getting your property repaired.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. So back to the example, I think we're at the point now, you were in Florida.
And not to cut you off, I can tell you just for an example, last year, the people in Lake Charles, I think the storm hit on August 20th, it hit sometime in August or whatever. The first inspection in my portal, the claims that I was handling, the first inspection wasn't until like October 20th. It's like 2 months. So you want to try to cut that out, right? I want to try to lessen those 60 days as much as possible by filing my claim early and getting on the list.
Yeah. So now we're at the point of preservation, right? So you filed your claim, it's August, the roof is gone, you just made it home. What's next? We have preservation stage.
Yeah, so we're trying to find something, like I said, if we can tarp it, we want to go ahead and get it tarped. And doing what we can to preserve our property. We want to now try to look for mitigation companies, because assuming if your roof came off, you have some roof leaks, we need to determine what drying out process that we can do. we want to talk to them about spraying antimicrobial on our existing materials to see what that is. Number two is also thinking about your personal property. Like, how can we secure our personal property, right? Moving things from one environment to another environment. So if your living room is completely destroyed, but maybe your bedrooms aren't, you might want to consider moving some things. We want to try to salvage as much as we possibly can. We want to try to move some things from our living room to our to other non-affected areas, or we might want to try to see what we can do is getting one of those pods, storage containers, to start storing our stuff in a more climate controlled environment to try to prevent additional damages to our personal property items as well.
And each of these efforts can be a part of the claim at this point.
Every single thing, cleanup. A lot of people don't realize, like, if you get home and you start cleaning up stuff inside your house, you're buying pine sol, all that's billable to the insurance company. You and your wife, y'all spend 8 hours cleaning your house. That's 8 hours for Emile, 8 hours for Emile's wife. We want to be reasonable on our labor charges. We might say $15 an hour. It took us, I want to get paid for that. And you very well could get paid for that under your policy. It's called mitigation. You're mitigating your damages. You're complying with the policy to prevent additional damages. And to do that, this is what I had to do. I had to clean my property. I had to sweep. I had to get all this soot and mold from out of here. I had to go buy a pine sol or cleaning supplies. I had to buy a mop. I had to buy a broom. I had to buy a fan. I had to buy all these different things. And all that is billable to the insurance company.
Right. And the reason I brought it up, because including me and just other investors in the group, we've already said, listen, my deductible is $2,500. My contractor, especially if we got rental properties, I know my guys could get this done for $1,000. But you saying, however, there's some other things that we overlooking. That $1,000 on top of me personally having to clean out the refrigerator, buying a generator because we didn't know how long the power was going to be out, getting rid of the spoiled food, bleaching the trash cans because everything has maggots on it because of the old food and stuff like that. We could be tallying that up on top of the $1,000 that our guys can get the actual damage done.
Yeah, so the thing is, the food, if we're talking rental property, if we're talking homeowners, that's different because that belongs to you, right? Mm-hmm. If we're talking renters, a rental dwelling policy, that's different. That belongs to the renter. Mm-hmm. But at the actual cleaning of the refrigerator, if the refrigerator belongs to you and you're cleaning it, that labor charge to clean, the cleaning supplies to clean can be added towards your contractor's $1,000.
Got it. Okay. Back to the example. So now you're at preservation stage. You're waiting on your field claim adjuster to come out. What are you doing at this point?
I'm waiting after that point. Once I do the preservation, now I'm gonna try to get ahead of my adjuster. I'm trying to get my contractors to come out and start giving me some estimates on what it is that we need to get done to get this house back to where it needs to be. And I want to have that number in my head. It may not be a solid number. It may just be a ballpark number because I want to have that number in my head, because when the adjuster comes back with his estimate, which 9 times out of 10, they're telling me that they're about a week behind. So he comes out today. I might not get an estimate until next week. I want to have some comparative already going in my brain, right? If his estimate is 25 grand, 25,000, but yet my contractor quoted me 35,000, we got a $10,000 gap. Now, as a real estate investor, this is your negotiation, right? This is what you guys practice all the time. We got this $10,000 gap, right? Now I got to find out what his $10,000 gap is. Now I'm going to ask my contractor, go ahead and write his estimate. Go ahead and write that $35,000 estimate. I'm trying to find this gap, right? So I'm going to look at with the adjuster, I'm going to look at it by what we call components, right? So the roofing component, the interior component, the exterior component, which one of these has the bigger gap? That's the one I'm going to concentrate on. I'm not going to concentrate on debris removal where they only gave me $1,500 and the contractor said it's $2,000. I'm not worried about $500. I'm trying to figure out this $10,000 gap. Is it the roofing? Did your contractor estimate $10,000 for the roof, and the adjuster estimated $5,000 for the roof? Okay, that's a $5,000 gap. Now I gotta see, where is it at? Is it in his labor price? Is it in his material price? Is it in the squares? We have this rule of thumb as adjusters. It's called the 3 M's. It's materials, measurements, and method of repair. Those are the 3 reasons why there would be a gap in your estimate. Are we using the same measurements? Are we using the same materials? And are we using the same method of repair?
Yeah, what's the example on the variance that could exist between the methods of repairs, using the same roof example? So the contractor says, this is a method, and the claim says, this is a method. What could be the 2 discrepancies that you've seen?
So like with shingles, it's pretty straightforward, right? You gotta rip them off. There's no other way to rip them off but to just pop them off like they normally do, along with the felt and all that kind of stuff. Because when you rip off the shingles, the felt's coming off anyway. There might be a difference in rolled roofing, flat roofs, on how they apply the flat roof versus the adjuster may say something totally different. And it may be a misapplication too of, this is a rolled roof, and then you have, or this is a shingle roof and you have roll roof, so those are a lot of different types of line item discrepancies that can happen. Again, going back to the shingles. Okay, the safety measurement of a 2-story steep roof, that's an application difference. Maybe they didn't add the 2-story steep charge. So 2 stories a charge, steep is a charge. We have to charge this twice because the guy's got to go up and take it down on the 2-story and the steep. So I'm charging it to take that down, and I'm charging it to put it back up. So that may be an instance, and a lot of times that is missed. Suppose your contractor uses an extra safety measurement. Maybe, I don't know, they had to go out and buy some, what's it called, lanyards or whatever, and that's not being applied. It's just all kind of stuff.
I get it. Yeah.
That you can add. What about securing your chimney? All that kind of stuff. Are we tarring a chimney around before we put down the flashing and the felt and all this kind of stuff? So that may be a method as well.
Yeah, excellent example. And at this point, your contractor is giving you your estimate. So now the adjuster actually has come on site. So now you face to face with Anitra. How are we approaching this this first meeting with you and the adjuster?
So how I normally approach it is I keep my mouth shut. I'm not so adjusters like to use the things that you say, and they'll put that in their file notes, right? And some of those things can come back to haunt you. I don't agree and I don't disagree with them at all. I'm just listening to what they think is damaged. Again, I don't believe in handling a claim on the ground at a job site. I'm just gonna do it in paper. You'll see my estimate in a few days. Just give me a few days. You'll see my estimate, and it's gonna look a whole lot different than yours. A whole lot. A lot. I have a lady. She had a fire in Alexandria last year, and I think her insurance company allotted for $153,000. My estimate right now is about 375,000. She's not going to get that because we have policy limits.
Right.
But it's just all the different stuff that I know to add in that,
So,
you know.
so who's responsible to close that gap? In your example and in Alexandria example, is it on the consumer, the contractor?
It's going to be, well, her claim is in the appraisal process right now. So it's going to be between me and the insurance company. We're going to try to negotiate. I know the number that we need to be at.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to try to negotiate some line items to see if we can get to that middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can't agree, then we hire what we call an umpire. And that umpire try to make a decision. And again, if I don't agree to that, then we go to court.
Yeah. So who's paying for the umpire? Who's paying Louisiana Claims Consultant to be the appraiser? Who's paying for all this?
So typically, if you hire me, then you are responsible for that payment as the policyholder. Likewise with the insurance company is responsible for their appraiser. However, the umpire cost, the third party person, that's a split cost. So we split that 50-50 down the middle.
Got it. Well, thank you for the incredible advice. I can tell you it's been helpful to me because I do have some form of anxiety when things like this happen, especially when you haven't seen all of the damage.
Right.
You just assume that. Personally, I always feel like the insurance is going to jerk me either way it goes. Like I'm gonna have to touch my war chest either way it goes, and that's just been my perception with being misinformed. But from your advice, you're saying to make sure that you are guarded with your numbers and your evidence. It's almost like going to trial. Is how you describe it. It's like you're really preparing for OJ.
Yeah, you have to be. It's in this case, it's knowledge is power, right? The policyholder is automatically behind when something like this happens. There's no way for me to sugarcoat it. You're automatically behind because you have no idea what your policy states. You have no idea what you're covered for, what you're not, until you begin to walk that fine line, right? And the thing is like the questions that they ask you, it's building up. You know, how you answer those questions, you know, when you initially called in, a lot of people calling in for that advance payment or evacuation money, or you want to get temporary housing. And I used this with Elridge the other day. You know, when you first call in that claim, some of the subtle questions, it could be so subtle. Hey, Emile, how many people you have in your household? And you say, let's just say you say 2, right? And then you come back and they say, yeah, you know what, we're going to pay for your evacuation expenses. And then you turn in 2 receipts for 2 hotels, right? But now you have your mother, your grandmother, you know how we roll. We roll with a family, and you know, you very well may be this person supporting some family members that don't live in your household. Well, I'm going to go back to my notes and be like, hey, listen, on August 29th, you told me you had 2 people. Why do I have 2 hotel invoices? You see? So that's why it's important to, you know, I'm always going to tell the truth. Always tell the truth, of course. But you got to be careful at what you tell them. You know, a lot of times too, like you look at your roof replacement. Say for instance, they do replace your roof, or let me use drywall. You replace your drywall, and your policy deducts, so what we call depreciate your drywall. You know, a lot of times it's done based on age. Well, how do we know the age? Because you told me how old it was.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? If you're telling me that your house is 30 years old and I depreciate your drywall by 30 years, that's a big chunk that's being held back from your repairs. It's just being held. It's just being held back. It's not necessarily that you're not going to get it. It's just being held back until you complete the repairs. You know, and some people who are strapped, when you're looking at some of those line items and the depreciation that they took, it can hurt you. All that adds up. All your line items add up when depreciated. It can really hurt you.
Yeah. And we wrapping up, Anitra. We do appreciate appreciate the time, but so the insurance company and the courts have you as an appraiser to help them guide themselves. Who do we have? Who can be our superhero? Because the example you gave is perfect. You listen to these questions, and you almost feel like they're asking this to set you up later on down the line. So who or what resource could we use to say, hey, look, they asked me this, or what should I expect them to ask, and what should I say, or how should I say it when I call in to make this claim, especially the people that either just bought a new property type. So for example, for the people that just closed on a fourplex right before Ida, I know I bought a property the Monday, and then we evacuated Friday. So what resources, or how do we resource, or how do we mitigate answering questions the wrong way in the future?
So that's a trick question, because you got to answer the questions. You should always be honest and truthful, right? And again, it just goes back to experience. Your experience with going through a disaster. A lot of people recall what they went through Katrina, and so they've changed up a few things as to how they report information going forward. It's real tricky, Emile. It's kind of that. It's kind of like asking a lawyer. Well, do I say this or do I say that? Right. Your best resource is your policy. That's it. Your best resource is a policy. You can lean on your agent. Like I said, it's very limited. You can probably run a few questions by them just a little bit. They can tell you based off their experience, what they've seen. But at the end of the day, you should always just be truthful and try to, go through your policy to see what coverages and may apply to you at that particular point.
Gotcha, thanks. So you helped us a lot. So how can a group help you in Louisiana Claims Consulting? How can we help you close your gap?
That's a good question. I'm probably my business is, again, I'm on the tail end of this thing, meaning when you have a dispute and you just know for a fact that you're being screwed. For the short of it, your estimate is too short. Your carrier is just not budging. You've called and called and called. You wrote letters, emails, or whatever, and you just simply can't get your damages repaired at a fair value. Then that's when I come in. My information is on the Louisiana Department of Insurance site. So all you got to do is just go to just go to them and search my name. It'll pop up. My contact information will pop up. And that's generally how individuals find me. But the bulk of my business is B2B, right? So bulk of my business comes from attorneys. Okay. And attorneys just reach out to me because you probably reached out to the attorney. And I'd say like 1 or 2% of my business is just an individual directly contacting me.
Okay. Well, I think we have some attorneys in the group, and we hope that we don't have to talk to you, but if we do, we know where to find you.
All right, thanks, Emile.
To get in touch with you before we wrap up.
So you could just, my direct cell phone, well, my email is it's really long, a.preston at louisianaclaimsconsulting.com.
Okay. Can we Google Louisiana Claims Consultant? Will it take us to you?
It's not. I don't have a website or anything like that. I'm behind, guys. But right. You can. My email is a.preston at louisianaclaimsconsulting.com. And my phone number is, you can call me directly, 504-416-1511.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Anitra. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Emile, for having me.